Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are zooming in on the ultimate construction project, biological architecture. We're going to explore how life organizes itself, moving from isolated single cells all the way up to the highly specialized teams we know as tissues. I mean, did you know your body is a bustling metropolis of over 30 trillion cells? That's just wild. And whether you're looking at a running wolf or a towering oak tree, the fundamental rules of how they're built remain incredibly consistent and just remarkably efficient.
So here's our roadmap for this structural tour. We'll cover 1. From cells to tissues, 2. Epithelial tissues, the boundary, 3. Nerve and muscle networks, 4. Connective tissues, the scaffolding, and finally, 5. Plant tissues, blueprints. Let's see exactly how these living building blocks fit together.
Section 1. From cells to tissues. Let's start our journey with the basic premise of how life actually organizes itself at the microscopic level.
Think about it. What actually happens when billions of cells team up? According to cell theory, the cell is the basic unit of structure and function in all organisms. Now, a single cell is absolutely incredible on its own, easily capable of handling its own metabolic activities. But to build a complex biological machine, individual cells really have to collaborate. They have to specialize, communicate, and work together on a massive scale.
And when they do team up, they form what we call tissues. You can kind of think of tissues as specialized task forces or guilds. They take on very specific jobs to ensure the whole organism survives. Rather than one single cell trying to juggle a million jobs and doing them all poorly, groups of cells physically adapt their shapes and internal structures to do one specific job perfectly.
Section 2. Epithelial tissues, the boundary. Moving on to the animal blueprint specifically, we're going to begin at the very edges of the body, the exterior defenses and the internal linings.
Now, this is a place where form literally dictates function. Look at the simple epithelium on the left. It's just a single layer of thin, flattened cells. Because it's so incredibly thin, it is perfectly designed for absorption, secretion, and filtration, like in your lungs, where oxygen needs to pass through super easily. On the right, though, you've got stratified epithelium, stacked up in multiple layers. This multi-layered setup isn't great for absorption at all, but it acts as a heavy-duty armor, which, is exactly why you don't bleed every time you lightly scratch your skin.
To really visualize this, check out how these boundaries are stationed across a wolf's anatomy. See the simple squamous epithelium? Those single, flattened layers? Perfect for delicate filtration. Then we have simple cuboidal epithelium. These are cube-shaped cells with a central spherical nucleus, and you'll find them stationed in kidney tubules and glands, like the thyroid, specifically for secretion. And take a look at the simple columnar epithelium in the digestive tract. These are large brick-shaped cells. Sometimes they're equipped with tiny microvilli to massively increase the surface area for absorption. Or they might have sweeping cilia to push foreign particles out of places like your trachea.
Section 3. Nerve and muscle networks. Let's move inward from those boundaries and check out the communication and movement engines of the animal body. So, the body's intricate IT department relies heavily on nervous tissue, which basically consists of two things, neurons and glial cells. Glial cells are kind of the unsung heroes here. They support and nourish the main communicators. The communicators themselves are broken down into 3 types of neurons. You've got sensory neurons bringing data in, interneurons processing that data, and motor neurons sending commands out to effectors, like your muscles or glands.
To actually see the wiring of that IT department in action, let's trace a signal through a motor neuron. It's like a lightning-fast relay race. Electrical signals are caught by these branched, root-like structures called dendrites. The signal gets processed right in the central cell body, the life support center. Then, boom, the neural impulse is transmitted away from the cell body, traveling all the way down that long, tail-like structure called the axon. And sometimes it's sped along by an insulating myelin sheath until it finally reaches the next cell.
And once that nervous signal reaches a muscle, our movement engines completely take over. These engines fall into 3 really distinct types. Skeletal muscles, the ones attached to your bones by tendons, are entirely under your voluntary control. They give you the most rapid movement, but they fatigue the easiest. Then you have cardiac muscle, found exclusively in the walls of your heart. It's involuntary, uniquely branched, and operates at an intermediate speed. Finally, we've got smooth muscle. This lines your internal organs, like your digestive tract and blood vessels. It is completely involuntary, has the slowest speed of contraction, but, and this is key, it boasts the greatest resistance to fatigue, meaning your internal organs can keep working around the clock without you ever having to think about it.
Section 4. Connective tissues, the scaffolding.
With our protective boundaries and dynamic movement engines locked in, let's look at the biological mortar holding the whole operation together.
Connective tissue is just incredibly diverse. Look at a knee joint, for example. You have dense, compact bone making up the skeleton, you've got smooth hyaline cartilage cushioning those joints, and you even have liquid blood flowing right through the vessels. While the hard calcified matrix of a bone looks completely different under a microscope compared to liquid blood plasma, they actually both fall under the exact same connective scaffolding umbrella.
It is actually wild to think that liquid blood and solid bones belong to the same tissue family, right? But what fundamentally defines a connective tissue is its unique architecture. It consists of cells scattered throughout a surrounding extracellular matrix, basically a web of fibers and foundation material. Regardless of their physical form, their job is almost universal, binding and supporting other tissues. They literally hold your tissues and organs together, keeping the whole shebang secured right in place. Section 5. Plant tissues. Blueprints. All right, complete gear shift here. Let's look at the very different architectural blueprint of plants. While animals move around and have these complex internal organ systems, plants evolved a completely unique way of structuring themselves to survive.
Plants rely on a pretty stark structural contrast. At their core, plant tissues exist in one of two distinct states. On one side, we have meristem tissues. Think of these as the plant's constant construction crews. They are young, unspecialized cells with thin primary walls and dense cytoplasm. And they retain the ability to actively divide by mitosis to pump out new cells. On the flip side, we have permanent tissues. This is the established infrastructure. These cells have specialized to perform specific functions, and crucially, they've lost the ability to divide.
So, where do these meristem construction zones actually live? Apical meristems are located right at the shoot tips and root tips. Their whole job is to push vertical growth, laying down new cells so the plant can reach up for sunlight and dig way down for water. Then you have intercalary meristems, found between the tips and the base of leaves and stems. Fun fact, this is exactly why your grass keeps growing right back from the base after you mow it. And finally, lateral meristems, like the vascular cambium. They act like structural engineers, expanding the plant's girth and increasing the diameter of stems and roots during secondary growth.
Once the meristem finishes its job of dividing, those newly minted cells differentiate into permanent fixtures, and these permanent tissues fall into two main groups. First up, ground tissues. These consist of mostly similar cells like parenchyma, and they make up the vast bulk of the plant, doing the heavy lifting of storing food and performing photosynthesis. Second, we have vascular tissues. These are a lot more complex, using different types of cells working together, like xylem and phloem. They act as the plant's internal plumbing system, transporting water and nutrients from the deepest roots all the way up to the highest leaves of, say, a 300-foot redwood.
So, we've seen how cells organize into tissues, from the protective epithelial layers and communicative nerve networks in animals to the actively dividing meristematic zones in plants. These tissues really are the fundamental task forces of life. But it leaves us with an absolutely incredible thought. If these highly specialized, perfectly adapted tissues are just the raw building materials, imagine the staggering complexity of the organs and the massive living systems they eventually combine to create. That leap from a simple tissue to a fully functioning organ is where the true magic of biological architecture happens. It really makes you wonder, what are the actual limits to the size and complexity of these living systems? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the incredible structures of the world around you.